Somewhere in the middle of the 18th century, a story happened in the lands of England that was even written down by someone. In one of the rural areas, an ordinary cemetery was laid out. Some former convict vagrant took on the job of night watchman there. Where he came from is unknown, but the authorities took him on for this position, and this man performed his duties conscientiously for several years. The former serf prisoner himself was happy with this turn of fate, since he had a roof over his head and a cramped gatehouse in which he lived. But one summer morning, visitors found him lying dead next to a fresh grave. The doctor who examined the deceased found that he was completely drained of blood, and wounds from a bite were visible on his neck. Rumors immediately spread around the area about a vampire who had appeared there. In addition, some observant people noticed that the unfortunate man's body was lying near the grave of Mr. Harry, who had tragically died the other day. This man was known as an unsociable person and was suspected of practicing black magic. No one knew what he did for a living because this man had no friends. And quite recently, while walking drunk from a tavern at night, Harry was hit by a horse-drawn carriage and died right there. There were no people among the superstitious English who wanted to take the place of a night watchman at the cemetery. But one lame youth of 15 or 16 years old still risked volunteering for such a service. The cripple simply did not have much of a choice. Once he fell from the roof of a house and broke his bones, which subsequently healed incorrectly. After this injury, the guy began to hobble somehow. Of course, no one needed such a worker, and the young man got by with odd jobs. And then suddenly fortune extended its hand to him. On the very first night, John, who had also heard about the strange death of the previous watchman, took up his duty fully armed. He filled a flask with holy water and hung it around his neck in addition to the church crucifix that his best friend, the bishop's son, had gotten for him. And this is what John told next. After midnight, I lit a lantern and left my lodge to check the cemetery. I kept quietly reciting prayers out loud to scare away any evil spirits. But at the very end, I noticed some kind of fog over one of the graves. I even understood that it belonged to Mr. Harry. This fog began to swirl and thicken. I saw that it was something abnormal. Then I quickly put out my lantern and hid behind the trees near the fence. In the darkness, I should not have been visible. But this fog suddenly disappeared, and some dark figure walked from the grave to the path. It did not notice me and silently headed toward the gate. And at that moment, a dangerous idea came to my mind. Since the ghost was not walking quickly, I managed to sneak up on it from behind. And I almost fell because of my clumsy limp, which did not allow me to hurry. And then pouring from the flask I sprinkled holy water on my palm, and at my own risk, I sprinkled this creature. It turned sharply towards me and quickly began to dissolve into fog. Its face was not visible in the darkness, so I cannot say what this ghost looked like. But I still managed to sprinkle holy water on the fog before it dissolved. Then, crossing myself and praying to God, I went to Harry's grave. I sprinkled it too, and then returned to my lodge and locked myself in it until the morning. I spent the rest of the night reading prayers. During the day, I told my friend William, whose father was a priest, about what had happened. In the evening, they came to the cemetery and the three of us visited Harry's grave. The Reverend Father read several prayers over it and sprinkled it with holy water, as did I. Then they said goodbye to me, blessing me, and went home. And I again walked around the cemetery all night anxiously and listened in my lodge for suspicious rustles. But the dead didn't bother me. Then William's father himself, of his own free will, held a memorial service for the deceased Harry, and nothing more terrible happened there.